This is loud.
Mm-hmm. Not as loud. No. It's really loud.
Maybe you should have used your phone.
Mm.
That was loud. You're not. The intro was.
I don't know what it is then. Either it's my microphone or your phone or something screwed up somewhere. I should be going out.
Something. We'll try my phone next time and see if that makes a difference.
I would say blame the Force, but that's not how the Force works.
Phill, after the Acolyte, no one knows how the Force works anymore.
Oh.
Mate, you're in for some absolute hatage coming your way for this, and I'm so not even sorry.
Oh. Okay.
I'm so sorry.
Because, yeah, I mean, I'm loving the Acolyte. I mean,
I know, and I don't want to break your heart.
Well, let's not beat around the bush and get into it then, because, sure, lay it on me. Because obviously we'll talk about Night and Day, because obviously you haven't seen the latest episode. I can't remember the title.
No, we haven't seen the last 2 episodes.
There was only... We've seen
there only one. Oh, yeah, because the next one's next week, isn't it? Yeah, the
next
one.
one's tomorrow, which I am...
Oh, okay, never mind. I don't know where I am. I don't know what's happening.
Well, look, we're on Tuesday rather than a Thursday, so the episode hasn't come out yet.
Sure.
Go on then, lay it on me. So, Acolyte, Night and Day, and the show so far. Go on then, give me your thoughts, because I have my thoughts, but at the same time, there's the wonderful thing about any franchise and any fandom. People are going to have differing opinions. And I'm happy to discuss and debate as long as there's no baseless, bigoted hate, which I've seen an awful lot of. Bring it on.
There's that, right. So there's no baseless, bigoted hate, right? Yeah. I mean, what I'm kind of seeing on Twitter and things at the moment is along the lines of, if you hate the Acolyte, you hate lesbians. Is kind of the big thing that's going on right now, which is very not true.
It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it is.
Look at my internet search history. I love lesbians. Look at the search history. Fine. I'm finding it directionless. I think the dialogue is very bland. Nothing is surprising. You know, and obviously we can break it down sequentially. I feel like there's shortcuts being made where they shouldn't be made. And I understand why they spent so long introducing characters for the night episode to happen.
Yeah.
But it also feels like a lot of wasted potential. Now, obviously, we've not done this for a few weeks, so life gets in the way. And you had the cat is playing with Rebels comics. You had an element of the May origin story, so to speak, with the witches that aren't Dathomirian witches, but they are that felt like Instagram boho witches.
Which is what I'm going to rant about.
Could have been very cool. I personally found it a bit cringy.
Yeah, I think for me, that was what really set me off. Is I was totally gung-ho. Well, I wasn't. I was waiting to see where it would go after the second episode. And when we got to the episode of them being children within their, what would essentially be the coven that they were in, I was not, I feel like they could have done so much with that. And it felt very much, as someone who was within the witchcraft community on the internet for such a long time, I've seen before, you know, presented in different ways. And for them to it just went from, oh, this is Star Wars to this no longer feels like Star Wars to me. It felt like it was in kind of like a modern setting within the community that I was a part of. And it felt really weird. And I guess that's my own personal experience with it, in a sense of like, not everyone is going to look at that and be like, oh, that's cringy. But I felt it was really cringy. And they didn't, and especially because I love the Dathomirian witches as well so much, it felt really weird that they did that. So that was I think that's what started to kind of put me off. And unfortunately, this is probably, I mean, I haven't seen all of the shows. Like I haven't seen Andor, but this was the first time since Book of Boba Fett where I wasn't excited going in to watch something. And I was like really disheartened, being like, because I was like, oh man, it's a chore to watch this and get through it, until the night episode, which was quite good. I mean, I still was like, but I mean, there were some sick scenes in that, but I just feel, it's brutal. Shish kebab. I feel very underwhelmed by this.
Yeah.
And cringe. Very cringe.
My complete honest review and honest opinion is obviously, yes, I'm a High Republic fan, and yes, I was a slight bias going into it, and I hold my hands up and say that in full light. The dialogue in this isn't the best. It really isn't. It feels clunky from time to time. Sometimes it does feel 2 words too many, and sometimes 2 words too few. It's not. The dialogue isn't great. The acting, some of it's great, some of it's not perfect. But that's okay. That's just actors for you. Sometimes you're going to swing and a miss. It's not the be-all and end-all. The way the story was going, and even so we're not going to talk about the latest episode in full because I know you haven't seen it. Even I get to a point of, okay, we're getting to a point, but they're taking a little bit too long to get there, and there's a bit too many threads. That's an honest review of me being a huge fan of it. There's still flaws in it. It's not perfect. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that everything's rosy and say, I don't shout up and jump out everything Star Wars, especially, Book of Boba Fett. I made it very clear. I still think is one of my lowest ranked things. Episode 9 is the biggest pile of garbage Star Wars has ever made. And I put that below Attack of the Clones, which I thought was the worst until then. And, I bleach in my eyes. But
I love that movie.
Attack of the Clones.
I love
You do love that. I do too.
I love it for certain things, but the dialogue in that is it's clunkier than Acolyte.
The dialogue in the prequels are not great.
Well, it's what Harrison Ford said to George Lucas back in the 70s. You can write this shit, but you can't say it. It's so Anyway, that's the prequels. The Acolyte, I love a lot of the lore, and for my favorite part at the moment is the attention to detail when it comes to the aesthetics, like the costuming, the actual world building is accurate to the High Republic, and I love that. I won't say it's the best thing since sliced bread, but it's still not awful. I love it.
The interesting thing about this conversation is we've not read the Acolyte, the High Republic, so we've not engaged with the High Republic, and I will absolutely I always approach these things not through the eye of a fanboy, but through the eye of someone who's consumed a lot of media.
Yeah.
And I still think that the Green Jedi Master still should have been Yoda. I still think because there's got to be a connection for people who don't understand it. Now, it's all, the aesthetics and the costuming, attention to detail is great. If you've never read the High Republic stuff, it doesn't matter. And I think ultimately the dialogue's very weak. And I think it has the recurring issue. And you can go back through these episodes, actually, where we've highlighted it all, and or Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka. Star Wars has an issue now with the fat middle. In that nothing happens, then everything happens, then nothing happens.
Yeah.
Look at Andor. You go through the episodes, you get the prison episodes.
Amazing, but in the wrong order.
Yeah, there's your fat middle, and then it tapers out again. Fat middle, where Thrawn comes in, tapers out.
So the one thing I'll say about Vanestra is obviously, yes, okay, I know her history, and as a fan, cool, the connections there. I think what they were trying to do is to not, because if you put Yoda in, it does also it could feel like they're shoehorning in a character they're trying to connect it too much. I think that's probably what it was. It could be a bit of a swing and a miss for those, as you say, who don't know that era. I think the intention obviously was to be, right, it's its own separate things, a whole new story and a whole new set of Star Wars, characters you don't know, a story you don't know. Here you go, here's its own separate thing. So the link could be a bit tenuous. You've had people like Kiadi Mundi.
He's in the books, right?
Yoda's in the books, though.
So it's not that tenuous.
Yaddle and so I get, but that's why I'm saying it. I think it's a swing and a miss, but I could see why they were trying to do it.
As a side point,
and
as a complete counterpoint to what you've said, we don't want Yoda in it because it's a tenuous link. Then why Kiadi Mundi?
Yeah. I get where you're coming with that. that seemed a bit. Yeah, that was weird to me because then obviously you have Matt had to explain this to me because I was like, oh, is it canon that he's this old and would he even exist in this? And Matt was like, well, not necessarily. And so there's kind of that gray area of like, well, how old is he? And could he have been in the Acolyte 100 years before he was in, or 100 so odd years before he was
so
in?
Canonically, he never had a birth date. People are chiming and going, oh, look, here you go, it's been proven. No, that was in Legends. There was no actual birth date in canon. And we don't know how long a Syrian lives for. Same for Miri Arlen. So Vanestra Rose Miri Arlen. For a long time, Miri Arlen, if you're a Force user, you lived for a long time. If you weren't a Force user, you didn't. But that was in Legends. In canon, we've had a few Miri Arlens now crop up who aren't Force sensitive, who do live a lot longer. It is a weird thing when you talk about humanoids. Humanoids, especially those who look more human than not, people kind of tend to put it on their expectations of, well, they're human, therefore they only live X amount of time. But they're still alien, they're still different. So I get why people do have the little, okay, but how old, but it doesn't, I get why. It's just one of those things of, unfortunately, if you, as a human being, look at another human being, you immediately clock, okay, they're this old, they could only have been born this long ago. It doesn't make sense. Whereas a Syrian, yes, with their giant ass head, of course, they look slightly different, but it's,
I do agree that the internet might be cherry picking a little bit, but that's what it does, isn't it? You know, that's.
I just think for a man with two brains, he constantly gets everything wrong, and that's really embarrassing. There's a great meme going around, Phil, which is my favorite thing they've established about Ki-Adi-Mundi is he's the Jedi who always gets things wrong. It's like for a man with two brains.
Ironically, you mentioned that. I've just finished reading The Living Force, which was a book that came out not too long ago, and Ki-Adi-Mundi's in that. And he messes up a couple of times because he gets things wrong.
For a man with two brains, he's not smart. But if you're gonna bring in a Link, he's not that popular.
I think Yoda will appear, though. I think you'll see the High Council in the last episode.
I think Yoda should. From what you've said about the High Republic, there's more in it that would have been more entertaining, like the pirate raiding, right? They would have been amazing. Bringing in a Sith element, and I absolutely hate the line, I guess you'd call me Sith.
Yeah.
I was like, that's really cringy. But okay. They could have done that, could have been like a season 2 or something. Season 1 could have been like laying the groundwork. Because the problem is, the problem with having in anything with a group of unknowns is you've got to take the breath to establish them.
Yeah.
And we've recently experienced this. I showed Tess Loki season 2 for the first time.
Yeah, which I still need to watch.
So good.
And season 1 is a bit limpy, but season 1 is establishing everything. The world, the characters, He Who Remains, getting ready to bring out Kang, all those sort of bits and pieces. Season 2 is an incredibly well written. Every episode ends with a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Every episode has its own story to tell. Everything has a purpose.
Yeah.
Glorious purpose, I guess you could say. And as well, and it doesn't have the fat middle problem. Now, there's a lot of throwaway in the Acolyte, such as, Wookiee Jedi.
Yeah, that was another thing that was really, it was like, he's cool. And then he's dead.
Kel Nacker is my biggest bugbear so far.
Yeah.
Because Kel Nacker could have been, and what I will defend a lot of things about the Acolyte. What I won't defend is when they came around and went, well, we had this idea for him to be involved in the fight scene and the rest of it, but we ran out of budget. I'm like, no,
you didn't.
Not it. That's not for a show that has one of the highest budgets ever.
Yeah.
No, you didn't run out of money. Something was there somewhere else. And that bugs me because Kel Nacker could have. So, especially in the Year of the High Republic, there are 3 Wookiee Jedi: Jedi Master Arkov, Jedi Knight Buriaga, and Jedi Master Kel Nacker. Now, Buriaga and Arkov, I don't know if they're still around by the time he gets to the Acolyte. The Phase 3 hasn't finished. I don't know if they're going to be alive by the end of it. I can't say for sure. Kel Nacker has been around, hasn't been mentioned so far. Would have been a really cool Link, and they threw him away. I'm like, this is, especially since it was used Sir Tamo. Again, I felt he was wasted as well because yes, he played Chewie, but they gave him a new role. This is a chance to establish a Wookiee that's in live action, because obviously in Clone Wars you have Gungi. There's a chance to establish a new Wookiee Jedi, but in live action, something that people really would be excited to see. And they kind of threw him away. And that's, as I will defend the Acolyte a lot of points, but that's one of my points. I'm like, no, you really wasted this opportunity. I would love to have seen that more than Yord. Now, Yord I like. I hated him to start with. And by the end of it, I'm like, yeah, all right, he's starting to grow on me. And then next snap, I'm like, oh, brutal. Okay.
I think as well, like, while we're talking about killing off characters.
I mean, Jackie was the one that broke my heart, though. Oh.
Yeah. Well, see, this is what I was just about to touch on. I don't know if I think Matt had a different opinion of me in this, but when we watched the night episode, my first reaction was, oh, this is really cool. But then, oh, fuck, everybody's dead. Yeah. And I was like, that seems like a waste to me, that all of these characters that you established for 4 episodes have now just been killed off. And almost in a way that it was like unnecessary and quick. And I was like, what?
Okay, so in the last episode, there is a couple of lines addressing it.
Okay.
And it's very much the no witnesses policy. And I get that. And as soon as you kind of click as to why, okay, it does start to make sense. And also, it is a bit in keeping with the High Republic, because the High Republic is brutal. It's
it was brutal. Like, we haven't seen anything like that in a while. Like, that was absolutely. I mean, that scene where he snaps that guy's neck, I was like, excuse me.
Also, the homage to Ventress, situation. He literally pulls someone else onto the saber.
Yes, that was shish kebab. The shish kebab situation.
People have been complaining that Disney have been screwing with lightsabers, making them more like little batons. Like, no, they are still lethal. And Cortosis making a proper like live action appearance is really cool. So there's a lot of cool parts to it, but cool factor alone doesn't make a great series. I think it makes a great series for other reasons, but if other people don't enjoy it, I'm not going to bash them for it. What I hate, though, is the unnecessary hate and the review bombing. There was a hilarious case where there was a fan film made about 10 years ago called The Acolytes, and over the last few weeks, it had about 8,000 new reviews of people bashing it. They go, you've got the wrong one. But it's bad when you know that in the very first... so the season 1 of The Mandalorian, over the last 5 years, the very first season had 10,000 reviews over a 5-year period. Episode 1 of The Acolyte had 16,000 reviews in 2 weeks. That's when you start to get to the point of the worst kind of Star Wars fans are Star Wars fans.
I mean,
I'm sick of it.
I think taking the reviews away and looking at it objectively, they're trying to tell a story which is completely uncharted territory to a general viewing audience. And I think with anything of this type of media, you've got to make a decision with what you're creating. And you've got to say, is this for established fans who are going to go out of their way to watch it? Or is this for this family has Disney Plus and has no idea, but they're going to stumble on it?
Yeah.
Now, The Mandalorian was made for those casual watchers, right? They were made for people that, like Pedro Pascal, it was a commercially viable enterprise with Grogu. You had your Saturday morning bad guy with Giancarlo Esposito. And you had a revolving cast of wacky, zany characters, right? Mandalorian was made for mass commercial appeal.
Yeah.
And it was made for people to stumble on it while watching Disney Plus and going, oh, he looks like Boba Fett, I think. Is that Boba Fett? Because your casual watcher isn't going to know about the dented helmet. Now, The Acolyte, I feel like, has been made for people that will go out of their way to watch it.
Star Wars, yeah, I get that.
But you are taking what is already... Now, everyone knows what Star Wars... Well, everyone knows who Darth Vader is. Not everyone knows what Star Wars is.
Yeah.
There's a difference there. The Acolyte is made for that slice of the pie that's already a niche interest group. And now you're appealing to a niche interest group in that niche interest group. So you're going, this is a group of people that like Star Wars. This is that slice. And here's that slice that's... My hands go the other way. Here's that slice that's gone and watched or engaged with the High Republic in the books and the comics or whatever. Great. So we're going to make a series of this group of people.
Yeah.
And you're alienating the rest of the pie for people that go out their way. Now, from a casual observer point of view, and I will always judge these things and review these things with Marvel and Star Wars and DC and everything, would my parents go watch it?
Yeah.
Would my mum and dad sit down to watch this piece of media?
Well,
My mum will happily watch Marvel.
Yeah.
My dad will happily watch Marvel. If I went, guys, watch the Acolyte, it's new Star Wars, they're not going to care.
Yeah.
But my dad would watch it and go, oh, that's Yoda, for example, right? So I think when we look at the issue of the night episode, choreography was great. I know what they were going for. They were going for the Red Wedding episode of Game of Thrones, right? They were going for shock factor to get people talking. My bugbear is that out of that whole cast of people up to the night episode, 2 characters I cared about. Kanaka, well, that was nice. Yep. We saw him run at people naked and throw guns around. We saw him fix a speeder bike, and then we saw his body. Like, he did 3 things and nothing was good. And it's so. Everyone that died, I was not given a chance to even grow to like them as characters.
That's kind of where I'm like.
So that had what's her face, the Padawan,
Jackie,
X-23 from Logan, when she was killed. Tess was like, oh no, that's sad. I was like, that's cool that off lightsaber stabbing was great. Because I wasn't given enough time to form a bond with these characters, so I didn't care about their death.
I think with her, it was specifically because she had more dialogue, she was charismatic, and so that you make a connection with those characters. She was small and fun and feisty, and that's why I liked her. And her death was just like, okay. But
the problem is, I feel like with her and George, is they set them up to die.
Yeah, looking back, it does kind of feel like that. But also, like, off the back of your point, if you were to take away this, basically where you're going with this, is if you were to take away Star Wars completely, and this was just a TV show, it had no connection to Disney or Star Wars whatsoever, would we be sitting here? Would we have watched it? And that's the question I ask, because I probably wouldn't have. Yeah.
I think it was a lot like, what was that series based on a book recently? I don't think it was Northern Lights. It was something like Northern Lights. Wheel of Time.
Yeah.
I watched it, never read the book, so I was like, the premise of this sounds great. I couldn't make it through the first episode. So I think it's a very difficult one in that it feels like a niche product targeted at the wrong people. Yeah. And I think that, I mean, the review bombing, a lot of it is going out the way on purpose. It is the second highest rated, viewed Star Wars show on Disney Plus, the first being Kenobi. Yeah. And then the ratings, this comes afterwards as the most viewed. So it was clearly appealing to people, or people are watching it to be angry at it or something. I don't know. Yeah. It feels like a mix, and I talk about that commercially viable thing because you've got, I know I keep coming back to Yoda, but you've got, here's a baby Yoda. And people instantly connected with that. People were like, oh, it's a baby version of this. Now, that was exciting because we've never seen another member of that species before. So now we're getting to the Acolyte. What's the exciting draw in the Acolyte we've never seen before? A Wookiee Jedi with a massive tree trunk of a lightsaber. Yeah. And okay, he's just done nothing. Yeah. So I think that's the problem with it, is that it's trying to be too appealing in its niche. As opposed to anything set in the original trilogy will always do well.
So I mean, I personally am loving it, but my question to you two, and the question I have for other people, I guess, is, as a more casual fan, do you think this would have worked better for you if it was an animated show rather than live action? Like split over 22 episodes. Think of it Clone Wars style.
Yes, I personally do. Because then you don't have the miss of the dialogue, right?
No, you'd still have the miss of the dialogue. In fact, there'd be more pressure put on the dialogue.
You think?
That's the issue.
Because I feel like I wouldn't relate it to real people acting as opposed to like a cartoon. Because I don't think about voice actors that much.
Because I think this would have been better if it was split over 22 episodes in the 20-minute format rather than the 8 over 40. That's my way of thinking. I love the story. I love seeing it in the live action era, and I love what they're going for. But I think from the casual point of view, I think it might have worked better for the more casual fan as a, they finished with the Clone Wars, finished with Bad Batch. Okay, what's the next animated show? The Acolyte would have worked well in that kind of era.
I feel like, and what it comes back to for me is the episode of Visions with the Ronin. That feudal Japanese one that's incredible.
Yeah.
Incredibly sparse on dialogue and quite heavy on action and imagery.
Yeah.
They taking the Acolyte, stripping it, but there was a great line in the Night episode. She was a child, you brought her here.
Yeah.
Incredible. That's such a well-written line.
Yeah.
So you take things of that quality, you take out a lot of the gumph. And you're right. I mean, I don't know if you probably do remember when Netflix's Daredevil first aired.
Yes.
And it was 12 episodes or something, and he didn't get the suit till the last episode in the 12.
Yeah.
And people came away from it after, at that point, 8 or 9 years of Marvel movies going, wow, this is a great format to tell this kind of story because it feels like issues. This episodic thing feels like episode 1's issue 1 and issue 2 and issue 3. By doing a long form series, you have greater space and time and breadth to get to know these characters and build attachment. It didn't matter that Matt Murdock didn't get the suit till episode 12 or whatever it was. You've had 12 episodes getting to know this guy, his friends, his motives, why he does what he does. Cramming this Star Wars stuff into 8, it needs to either be over a couple of seasons or they need to go longer form. I don't know why they're so stuck on the 8-episode track.
They did it with Ahsoka too, and like what made me woo. Yeah, I got it. I think with Ahsoka at least, and I'm biased because I love Rebels. So to a certain degree, I love Ahsoka, and Ahsoka is my acolyte to how you feel, right? Like in that regard, because you love the High Republic so much. But if I can look back on Ahsoka and I can see what Matt's saying about how it really all happened in the middle and like how that, and I think the way that they ended the first season of Ahsoka was really poor. And I think we can all kind of agree with that in a sense. And had they extended it maybe just 2 more episodes, they probably could have resolved the issues and the rushing of some bits and pieces. And I think I agree. I don't know. I remember in the 90s and early 2000s when a season was like 25 episodes. What happened to that? Bring it back. What is that?
I can tell you exactly what that is. It's the focus is now on, from their point of view, it's quality over quantity in terms of what you see on the screen. With people getting bigger and better televisions, with the more technology you have, they're trying to show off what they can do more so than when you have to compare yourself to a Game of Thrones, or you have to compare yourself to something like Daredevil, things like that. You've got a format that works, but a visually spectacular format. You then have an expectation to be able to meet that, and sometimes in the cards you then miss out. As you said, it's that fat middle, a case of well, they're trying to tell the story, but they've got to spread it over this. But they could have. It would have. A lot of what I'm seeing and I'm loving definitely is like would benefit from either being over a more spread over a longer series of time. But when you don't know if you're getting a season 2 or not, sometimes they go, okay, well, here's the story, cram it all in. We don't have the guarantee. There's no, it's been signed on for 5 seasons. It's just here you go, we'll put it out there and see, which then things do suffer from. When you've got the books and the comics, for example, with the High Republic, Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase 3, they were clearly laid out. And when I went to Celebration last year, they went, here's everything you're getting for Phase 3. It's 9 books, plus an audio, plus the comics. And the stories build, and they build, and they build. And each one adds on to the next bit, and they go, okay, this is where it's leading to.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a 22 episode format and don't have the knowledge you're guaranteed to get the next series, and yet you still have a huge budget and you've got to make it look spectacular, things will start to fall through the cracks. And so this is coming from someone who's a huge fan of the Acolyte. I mean, I am loving it for so many reasons, but I can still sit there and go, it's not perfect. And it would just benefit a little bit more, because you're missing a chunk from that last episode. They kind of do tie a few more things together, but the problem is, again, they fall into the age-old trap of, here's the big bang to start. We know we're going to end on a cliffhanger. How do we handle the middle? And that's that middle part that they still are struggling to get over. Up until Day, those last few episodes were a case of, okay, we're still getting the story. Okay, we're finally getting the background. Okay, but even the background felt unfinished. But we're getting to that in tomorrow's episode's going to be the other half of the flashback story. Saul's going to tell May what he knows, but even that entire last episode, I was like, really? Like, come on. Okay, get to the point.
I feel like this should have been preceded with a High Republic movie.
Yeah.
Because what's happening, and I'm noticing this with Star Wars, and it's not like that with Marvel, admittedly. Okay, the past few Marvel films have been mediocre, but because I've taken Tess through the MCU at the moment,
I'm having great fun.
we watched Falcon and Winter Soldier over a couple of nights. And I think where Marvel is succeeding is they're not trying to tell too much story.
Yeah.
You're just focusing on different characters and stories.
The series are being used to build links between the movies. And I feel like, had we had a High Republic movie first, the perception could have changed on the Acolytes. But I don't really care about flashback episodes for characters I don't care about. I mean, we came out of Night, and I was like, oh, they're going to parent trap Sol. And why are we getting the parent trap in Star Wars with the Jedi? That's insane. Right? That's kind of mad, and it's tropey, and it's not cliche. It's a very cliche. Like when you're in school and you have to do a creative writing assignment, and you get this really good idea, you create it all down. You're like, oh, now I have to do a beginning and the end. This is what that feels like, and I feel that they are trying to tell way too much story.
Yeah.
In this, like Loki season. Okay, Loki's been over 2 seasons, at least 12 episodes. Falcon and Winter Soldier was 6. Moon Knight, 6 episodes, spectacular all the way through.
Oh god, yeah.
Because you're following one dude, and you're not actually you've got a dude, a bad guy, and then the accoutrement. Khonshu, the hippo, all those kind of bits and pieces. This has not only got, you're not following one dude in the Acolyte. You're following Sol and May.
And her sister.
And Osha.
Osha's
And it's, I think, spreading its attention. It's trying to take on too much.
I do agree that there is a lot going on.
And it should have been preceded by a film, or it should have been a film.
Also, I was not surprised who turned out to be the bad guy. I mean, you know.
The himbo from The Good Place.
Oh no. Oh.
Sorry. Prince has just finished. The alarm was blared. Like, just gonna mute myself whilst the alarm
That's
goes
fair.
off.
That's valid.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, yeah, go ahead.
I know what you mean, though. Especially, Jason, as if from The Good Place.
Is it Jason? There we go. It's Jason from The Good Place. I can't unsee it.
He's been one of the better parts, especially when now you're seeing him kind of have to just be who he is, and that's the last episode we just got. Especially delves more into that. It's you'll enjoy it from that aspect. And again, it's that whole they're getting to that point, but now with the whole parent trap thing again, you'll see they do figure it out quickly. But then it's a case of here's the other half of the story as to why. But getting to that, it's getting to that point. I'm like, okay, come on, let's get there. And I don't want to be doing that. The whole point of the High Republic when they first launched that, the entire meeting, they were going, okay, we want to tell these stories. What do we want to do? And someone just turned around and said, what do the Jedi fear? Done. That was the brief. And they kind of went away and made everything based on that.
What do they fear? scary Jedi. I feel like, I mean, the Sith dude has been a very strong part of it.
Yeah.
He is absolutely going to have something to do with the origin of the Knights of Ren. He was very Kylo Ren in what he did. He was like a buff Kylo Ren. Like, he was aggressive. He dressed like the Knights of Ren.
Snap someone's neck. I just can't
There's
get over
absolutely going to be a thing there. Now, all I can't help but to think, and he's like tipping the Acolyte on its head, right? So when the first Suicide Squad film came out, no matter what you think about it, the rumor was that the bad guy in that film was going to be Batman. Right? So imagine that for like a second. Either you've got a film where you're following Harley Quinn, Deadshot, Captain Boomerang, Killer Croc, and the bad guy they're fighting is Batman. You see Batman from the eyes of the villain. So you see him being the shadow monster. You see him being scary. You see him beating the crap out of them. I got really excited about that rumor because I was like, oh, after all of these years, after 85 years of Batman, we finally get to see what he is from the eyes of the villain. Right? Not Bruce being like, I'll take you in. Kids, we get to see the terror monster that he is. Obviously, it didn't happen. Now, with the Acolyte, it would have been very, very cool to have made it all about the Acolyte and to follow the story of the bad guy and see the Jedi through his eyes. It's a new era of the galaxy. The idea of Jedi has been around since the 70s.
Yeah.
So, actually, the series is called The Acolyte, so why not focus on the Acolyte and go, this is the High Republic era. Jedi aren't what you know them to be.
Yeah.
It doesn't need May and Osha because what they've done with this Sith dude is made him so interesting and compelling that May and Osha feel pointless until he turns up.
Yeah.
So get the feel of Star Wars from the Sith point of view. That would have been sick.
I thought we were going to get more of that, if I'm honest. That's kind of the mission brief.
You tell me if it was a lifelong fan. How sick would that have been, right? It would have been like getting a film from Vader's perspective.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Funny enough, that's what we get in the High Republic, is the point of view from like the Nihil and Marchion Ro is how he views the Jedi, how he views the Republic. You get it from the point of view of, cool, you sit there. It's very much the old knightly way of, you sit there in your castles and you ride out and pretend to look after the people, but the people are starving. You're not doing anything for them. You're just there to look pretty. Where in actual fact, you are the menace, and I'm going to show the galaxy what you truly are. And that's the perspective we've had from Marchion Ro and the Nihil and the Nameless. Annoyingly as well, the Acolyte would have been a great thing to debut the Nameless in live action, or even just on TV if it was in cartoons, wherever we were done, but live action especially, because the Nameless are brutal. The Nameless are Force eaters, effectively. They feed off of the Force. So when a Jedi comes up to them, they are engulfed in fear as their life force is being drained away, and they end up as a husk, a literal husk of dust that you touch them,
that's
fall apart.
So this is
terrifying.
This is a point that I forgot about until we started talking about this, and I said this to Matt when we were watching the flashback episode where their children, and the Jedi come to their island base thing. I don't even know where they are. I forget. But in that, she is teaching them how to use the Force, but they don't refer to it as the Force, and they actually talk about how it's not the Force and how that's kind of almost like a dirty word to them, because it is just what it is. It's just essentially energy. And that's how I've always perceived it, is that the Force is one thing, but you can't put that in a box because it's everywhere. Yeah. So one viewpoint is that it's the Force, and that's how they use it as Jedi to explain things. But then the witches are talking about it in a sense of like, oh, it's actually just this and this. I can't remember what they called it.
The thread.
Yeah, the thread. And it's really interesting the different ways and perspectives that people around the galaxy will have of the Force, because not everyone is going to use it like the Force, and not everyone is going to call it the Force, because it's not a one thing.
No. And you have that. So the Dathomirians obviously call it magic for their version. You have the thread for this. In the High Republic, you have the convocation of the Force on Jeddah. Jeddah you see in Rogue One, but you don't really know too much about what it was and kind of its original spirituality. The convocation of Force houses people like the Guardian of Wills, who look after the Temple of Kyber. You have dark side users, light side users, more naturalistic users, people who are a lot more in tune with the living force than they are of the cosmic force. You have other way around. So you have so many different points of view. And the whole point in the convocation was a way of everyone has their own viewpoint. We understand the Force, whatever you want to call it, this perpetual energy surrounding the galaxy is a thing. The way you choose to use it, worship it, whatever, as long as you don't abuse it for any malintent, you're kind of free to do what you want, and kind of it's the acceptance, which why the Jedi aren't actually very much accepted there, because the Jedi, people look at them again from that whole point of, well, you perpetuate the stereotype of you are above everyone else, you are the right all the time, you are the only ones who are allowed to be in the right.
Wield the Force,
And again, with the Acolyte, you're gonna get more of that. I can see kind of some of the cogs turning of where it's going to come from, and Khmer, whatever his real name ends up being, which I love the fact I still don't know what that is, it is going to be a bigger part of that. And I think season 2, if and when they get to it, will then finally focus more on that. I do also think I don't know. It's not going to be one we know. It's not going to be.
But do you think it's going to be something on the nose like Ren?
No, and I don't think that. I think more it's going to be he's going to be looking for something. It's going to be linked eventually to Plagueis, but we don't know how. It's going to be something along that lines.
But Plagueis, again, a lot of Plagueis in Legends was saying he's not Plagueis.
He's not Plagueis. No, he himself is not Plagueis. But there's elements to hint towards that you will see Plagueis at some point. But
I think his name is going to be something really on the nose.
It could be. It could be. And I don't know.
To make people go, oh! And it will be revealed at the end of the season while waiting for season 2 to come through. Because ultimately, like, I saw a really good point on Twitter, and I spoke to Steph about this during the week. All these changes to like the lore and canon and stuff, Dave Filoni's signing off on. But Dave Filoni has obviously got his fingers in this. That man needs Jon Favreau. Because it feels rudderless.
Like, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Now that we've gotten through most of the MCU now, we've only got a few things to go.
We do.
The MCU, to me, although not perfect and has its flaws in some areas, is seamless. It's absolutely seamless. And I've always been, a stan of the Star Wars. Sound like I'm 80. But it just doesn't feel seamless, and it doesn't feel, not chronological, that's not the word I'm looking for, cohesive in a sense. Whereas Jon Favreau within the MCU has made it so cohesive. And what he did with The Mandalorian was incredible, because he brought in elements of Star Wars that fans know, even Rebels. I mean, Zeb was in fucking Mandalorian season 3. Like, that's incredible. Yeah, for like seconds, we know that. We got excited. And it was little bits and pieces like that. Like, I remember people talking about Mailaroon and me freaking out. It's like little bits and pieces. And it just feels like disconnected at this point. And I think that's my biggest, and I just want them to bring it back.
But
reel it in.
This is going full circle to, they could have put Yoda in it.
You're not going to let that go.
No, but you just, you just said yourself, you want more links to the original.
And there will be. I think
they visited Coruscant.
Yeah.
But why not let's go to Jeddah, which we saw in Rogue One, but let's see it complete and functioning. Let's bring in Yoda. Let's bring in Maz. That would be great.
Yeah.
She's great. Need to utilize her more, because she's great. But there's a lot they could do with the universe. Exactly what you just said. In that, tying it into what we know to make it feel like a part of it.
And I think they will. I do think also this is one of those shows which will going to benefit more from sitting down and watching it in binge form than it is in a weekly form.
Yeah. Okay.
But that's the tricky one at the moment when they're trying to. I hate, and it's not just with Star Wars. It's every streaming platform that doesn't do this. When they meter it out over weeks, they do it from a cash cow point of we want people to pay for the monthly subscription for the months that's on.
But not the Bear.
Rather than
the Bear got dropped in one hit. All episodes of season 3 of the Bear landed at once. That's great, by the way. If you've never seen it before, watch it.
Yeah,
it's impeccable. But anyway, yes.
Yeah. You know the point I'm trying to make though, that it does feel like with a lot of these things where they're having to do it over that period of time rather than focus it as here's a story, they'll put it out when they put it out. It's we have to make it last a little bit longer, so they do stretch it out, and that fat middle then is it's a symptom. It's not the symptom of the cause, but it's the result of that problem. Is you have to stretch it out without padding it out, and I hate filler episodes anyway. And this feels like there's I love so much of it, and I do love the concept behind whatever his name's gonna be with Khmer. I do hate the fact there's another twin dilemma. I'm like, okay, we've twin dilemmas in Star Wars is a thing, it's well established. We don't need another twin trope, but I'll take it. But I love the Jedi for what they are. I love Vanestra being in it because, well, okay, you'll see the light whip in the next episode, but you've seen it in the trailer, but the light whip is there. It's a really cool concept. The fact that Khmer's lightsaber also splits apart so you can then do a dishonorable death, very un-Jedi. It's amazing. There's so many cool things to it. It's just, it's not perfect, but I still love it. And there's but there are flaws to it, and it does kind of. I'm not going to sit here and gloss over it all, but what I will say is that the bits that annoy me really annoy me. It's like, come on.
Phill, I've always said, there's nothing wrong with loving what you love.
No, 100%.
Okay, and you are absolutely balls deep in the High Republic, man. You are in at the deep end without a paddle into the High Republic. So of course you're allowed to love it. But the eyes that you're watching this through are along the lines of, it's the light whip, it's this person, this is what's happening here. Now, you could your knowledge of the High Republic's impeccable. You could reel off a better story that you read in the High Republic to be translated into live action. Then let's jump in at the end of it with the first Sith, who is, I'm saying now, he's going to have a really on-the-nose name.
He might well do.
The only reason the Stranger in Rings of Power didn't get called Gandalf was because they didn't have the rights to Gandalf.
That's true.
Right? But they could use his root. It's going to be that on the nose. It will be something like Ren. It will be something like Revan. It will be something like Kylo. It will be something really on the nose. I guarantee it. Because the reason I say that is because the Acolyte is not smart. Right? It's not clever in what it's doing. It's not doing anything original. It's not doing anything that makes you go, that was amazing. It's lightsaber fight, granted, but lightsaber fights are always good. Right? That's why the night episode was great.
Always.
But the dude finally did that whole thing of switching it on and off, right?
Yeah.
Genius.
The helmet. We didn't talk about the helmet.
Yeah, we have.
Have we? Oh, is that what that? Okay, never mind.
But
the Cortosis is something that people, unless you read the Thrawn books, won't know what it is.
I had no idea about that until I was like, oh, his helmet. Very cool.
But we are coming through the plot points and the way the story is unfolding. There is nothing smart. There is nothing unpredictable. That every story beat so far has been like, oh yeah, obviously. So his name is going to be something really on the nose.
Could well be.
And that will, that will either annoy you, really annoy you.
Yep.
You'll be like, they could have just told this story about the thinking rock, or You'll be like, oh my god, they said the thing.
I mean, Geode would have been really cool to see, yeah.
Geodude would not have been cool to see because he's Pokemon.
No, the literal name of the sentient rock is Geode.
Love it.
And he evolves into Golem.
Graveler first.
Okay, goes Graveler, then Golem. I just can't escape the feeling it's going to be something obvious, and you're either going to love it or you're going to really hate it.
Well, you'll know because we'll talk about it because I'll be here and I will say if I hate it or love it, but it's going to be a thing, yeah.
And there's an element of, and they said it when The Mandalorian first came out, that Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are going to fix the sequel trilogy by telling these stories.
Yeah.
Right? New Sith dude looks so much like one of the Knights of Ren that's not accidental. So you're going to establish these nobodies in the sequel trilogy back to the High Republic?
Essentially.
That's not an accident. From a design cue, that's incredibly purposeful.
He had the same, I think, the same silhouette and everything, and almost the same fighting style as well, though I'd never seen Kylo Ren snap anyone's neck. I keep bringing that up, but it was so, that was so harrowing to me.
Yeah. Brutal.
I was like, oh my god, because usually you get someone getting stabbed with a lightsaber, you're like, that's not real, but he snapped someone's neck and you're like, that is a real thing that people do.
I will say, I hate the grinning helmet.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, that's fair.
It looks like Venom.
It does. Or it looks like a Joker goon or something. I don't feel like the smiling helmet belongs in Star Wars.
The more I looked at it, was more like the Batman Who Laughs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it supposed to be a smile, or is it just like where it's welded funny? And
no, it's a proper.
It's
a grin. It's a proper.
It is a grin.
Like, the tubes of the teeth.
Yeah, it's not the best helmet we've seen in Star Wars by far, but it's still not the worst. But
I mean, Kylo's wasn't great either. So
no, Kylo's was way better than the grinning helmet.
Kylo's was better. Although to be fair, I prefer Kylo's Episode 9 helmet when he welds it all back.
Yeah, where he welds it together. Same.
Cool.
I feel like the grin is so it just doesn't belong in Star Wars to the point it's weird.
That's fair. I mean, also can I don't know if I can bring up Marky on Rowe, but Marky on Rowe's helmet design's much better. Let's see if I can bring it up.
Like, the thing is, it's so up to interpretation because nowhere did they take from the books in the sense of costume design for a character that didn't exist. So really, I get it. They're taking artist, interpretation, creative interpretation, but there is a room of people paid high amounts of money who approved these things, and that's where I'm like,
I can see what they were going for. I think it's awful. I mean, that helmet without a mouth on it would have looked great.
You can tell that they put a lot of money into the aesthetics in regards to the costuming and the CGI in regards to the backgrounds. And that's great. And I really appreciate that because I think it's beautiful. I think it's stunning the way that they did the Acolyte. I just, there's different elements and layers to it, isn't there?
It does feel like they're kind of pissing money away because they can.
Let's see if I can bring it up.
Disney in it.
I mean, you say that, but look at the MCU.
I was going to say, I can't really argue that because the MCU is flawless. Well, it's not flawless. It's consistent and it's cohesive. And I love that.
Annoyingly, I don't think I can actually add.
You can't find it.
Well, no, I found it. I just can't add an actual just simple image. Because it's gonna get pay for that. I'm not paying for anything because why would I? All right, let me just ping it across to you. I want to see your reaction to the way he looks because it is.
And who's helmet is this?
This is going to be Marky on Rowe, who's the leader of the Nile, which again is all High Republic stuff.
Okay, right.
So let me just do this.
Yeah.
Let's get that folder there.
Right, I'll put that in. Great. So this is somebody in the High Republic, yeah?
Yeah, this is basically the head honcho of the bad guys.
Again, if there's already established bad guys, why aren't they in the Acolyte?
Because
that's excellent.
Evereni, I don't know how long they'll live for, and also this is kind of the entirety of Phase 1, 2, and 3 is the story arcs. I don't know how long he's gonna.
He looks cool as fuck.
That looks really Star Warsy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It doesn't need a grin, even though it looks like a gas mask. It doesn't need a grin. It's like that thing, 2 tubes.
It is a gas mask because their whole terror tactic is almost Scarecrowish. They rock up with gas.
But it's only 2 tubes, man. Yeah, that's great. He could have looked like that, but it didn't.
Yeah.
So I mean, design cues wise, it just it feels odd, and the rest of it's been very good. From a design perspective, like the Jedi outfits and things, the granny helmet feels weird.
So, funny enough, Mad is popping in the comments because she wants to say hi, but I'm going to bring in the comments. She's actually put a good comment here. So, still new when it comes to Star Wars. That means why I like the Acolyte so much. So, talking about earlier about those who don't know a lot, there is also the flip side of it's kind of a new and exciting thing for those who haven't. So, you do get the. It's the mid ground. It's those who know a little bit, but those who don't know too much. That maybe it kind of misses the mark on. Those who are, as you'd say, like I am, balls deep in the High Republic. Yes, I love it for so many reasons. For those who come into it completely fresh, they might like it for something else. But there's kind of be. But we always come back to this, whether it's something that you like or something you don't like in any fandom. Not everyone likes the same thing. Not everyone's going to be as on board with it. And even someone who is, like myself, can still pick flaws in it, but still love it. But there's, I know, I get and I agree with so much, especially with some of the actual, because the costume is fantastic. Yeah, he is very Knight of Ren-ish. I don't think it's going to be a complete link, but I think there might be something there too. We'll see. That's going to be something. And then, again, this one here, and the Jedi are not good guys, and she loves that. The whole point of the High Republic is to show the Jedi aren't. They are fallible.
Yeah.
So tell the story from the Sith perspective.
Yeah.
Right? And really make that obvious.
And I think we will see more of that in these last 2 episodes, but it feels like it's getting a little bit too long to get to it.
I'm just feeling like what Star Wars have done with animation in the past 5 years, with the Mandalorian's an exception, but with animation has been consistent and it's been very, very good. Visions has been fantastic.
Yeah.
Bad Batch is excellent.
Yes, it is.
And everything with Clone Wars, and they're telling better stories through a long-term episodic animation than they are live action.
Which is what I said earlier. I think the Acolyte could have benefited from that.
Yeah, I feel like the live action stuff is starting to lose its sheen, and I feel like after Mandalorian and Grogu, or whatever it's going to be called, they probably need to take a step back from anything live action for a while.
You're going to have the other movies come along, but apart from that, I kind of agree to a point. They need to limit it a little bit. But like we've got like Dawn of the Jedi, the Old Republic. The Old Republic's going to be the interesting one because it's going to drag a lot of those old school Legends fans in. So they've got to really look after it, or else there's going to be hell to pay.
It's going to have to be done well. That's so dangerous for them. It feels like there's more confidence in going ahead and doing that. It's like they're writing checks that they can't cash.
Yeah,
they're like, let's play with the Revan toolbox. Bad idea, because those people are so critical.
Yeah,
that don't know. I genuinely think. I mean, you've got to look at, and again, Marvel's the only real comparison to this, and they're both Disney. The only film Marvel are releasing this year is Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah.
Other films have moved their dates 6 weeks either side of July 25th.
Yeah.
Because nobody has gone, I'm going to compete with Deadpool and Wolverine.
No one wants to compete with that.
So they've all moved their release schedule. Mandalorian Grogu's out December 2025.
Yeah.
You know what's out the same day as Mandalorian and Grogu?
No.
June 3.
Oh, hell, that's going to be a horrible day.
But
okay.
Deadpool and Wolverine, everyone goes, we're not touching this.
Yeah.
For Mandalorian and Grogu, Dennis Vule, or whatever his name is, gone, I'll release a film on the same day.
Yeah, that's fair.
Which is bad. So I feel like after that, there needs to be a step back and there needs to be a bit of space. And they need to go, you know what? The animated stuff. do an animated High Republic series. That would be great.
It would be.
Make the Bad Batch graphics look old and outdated. Or do it in like a really heavy like manga style. That would be sick. Right? It's got the scope to have to do that. I think they're trying to cram too much in too short of a space because none of these things are confirmed for a series 2. Ahsoka's not confirmed for a season 2.
It is.
Yeah, it is.
It is? I didn't think it was then.
No, it is.
Oh, yeah. No,
Yeah.
it got
That is, yeah.
A couple months after it came out.
And then the woman that's done The Acolyte has both said that there is going to be a season 2 and isn't.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited for Skeleton Crew.
Yeah.
And I'm really annoyed that we've had the Lego sets for it revealed before the trailer.
Yeah, that does bug me a little bit. But we'll see on all that. I mean, the one thing is I'm gonna look at the time. I'm gonna wrap it all up a little bit.
No.
But we've cracked on with this quite an in-depth discussion on purely the
We're very
different
heated
viewpoints around it. Well, no, but this is the thing I said at the start, and this is what I like when it comes down to discussions. If you're a fan, have these kind of discussions. Be polite. What I hate at the moment, sort of scenes, a lot of the needless, bigoted.
It's unnecessary.
A lot of the if you're a true Star Wars fan, you won't like, you shouldn't like this. I'm like, well, there's no such thing as a true fan, in terms of that regard.
Yeah, and there's no reason to bring in someone's sexuality or anything into the discussion in regards to like why they like it and why they don't. I think that's completely
I will
unnecessary.
say what I've said all along at this point is I don't care what your sexuality is. If you make crap, I'm going to call it crap, and it's not an attack.
No.
I think the Acolyte, as I said with Andor, as like wrapping up to this point, because we've got episodes to catch up on. But with Andor, I feel like they made a series based on the least interesting character in Rogue One. With the Acolyte, I think it's a great idea, really poorly executed.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And I will more than happily have that discussion every single day of the week than as to some of those bigoted haters out there. But and that's me also sat on the fence for going, yeah, I love it. But you guys aren't bashing me for loving it. I'm not bashing you for hating it. That's the beautiful thing about it all. The High Republic,
you want, man. Like,
yeah,
you're gonna love it, and that's fine. And I'm never gonna shit on you from a great height for liking what you want to like.
No.
And these are constructive conversations. There are bits 100%. That I like. I just feel like, obviously, we touched on it all. There's just an element of it's a small slice of the pie that would only appeal really to a small slice of the pie.
Yeah.
And the rest of us are sat there going, what?
That is fair.
Interest. And people are raging, and people are going to rage over absolutely everything.
Yeah.
And it's not Kenobi, which was glorious.
Oh, so much, yes.
So good.
And I think The Mandalorian and Kenobi have been the best so far of the live-action series.
Yeah.
I actually agree with that, yeah. I agree. And I love Rebels. And I struggled really hard with Ahsoka. And I have that bias, too, where, like, I can the same as you have with The Acolyte, where I freaking loved Ahsoka because it had all these characters and all this stuff that I really identified with.
Yeah.
And I think that it's hard for me to look at Ahsoka and be like, oh, I didn't like that. Now, I strongly didn't like the last episode, and I will put my hands up and be like, I didn't like the way they ended the first season. Does that mean that might be set up in a good way for season 2? I don't know. We don't know.
And in 2 weeks'
so many
time, we
unknowns.
come back for the next episode, the show will have finished.
Yeah.
Regardless of season 2 or not, so we can have a proper breakdown of the ending and see if we landed that mark.
As always, there was no Hondo, and there's been no Afra.
Yep.
It wouldn't be an episode at this point without talking about a live-action Afra.
Nope.
And there was no Hondo and no Afra. Therefore, it gets 0 Hondos out of 10 and 0 Afras out of 10.
Zero Hondos out of 10.
0 Hondos out of 10 on that particular nutshell. We're going to end the show tonight. We will be back in 2 weeks. We'll talk about the ending of The Acolyte.
Yeah.
And rant and rave more about Afra and Hondo. But we shall see you all then. Good night.
For more grading on the Hondo scale.
Yes.
Oh, too right.
The Hondo and Aka scale.